Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. Depending on where you're calling from, Eastern time, it's 4 p.m. If you're over on the West Coast, you may be 1 p.m. But wherever you're calling in from, we want to welcome you to this webinar on today, how to pay for college. We're certainly excited and delighted that you chose to come and spend this time with us. And I'm telling you, you will not be mad with yourself that you did. Again, my name is Latrina Artist. I am the Scholarship Program Director here at the Jeanette Rankin Foundation. I'm telling you, I am just thrilled to be able to not only be here with one of my colleagues, Kat Luna, who is like myself, JRF alum, but we are tremendously blessed to have our very own Michelle Johnson. I say our very own because she's now been partnering and working with us for the second time for a webinar. So let me just kind of introduce her. Well, no, I'll let my other team member, Kat Luna, introduce herself. Then I'll come back and introduce Michelle, and we'll get going with this fabulous webinar for today.
Thank you, Latrina. I am Kat Luna, and I am the Scholar Grant Program Manager at JRF. And like Latrina had mentioned, I'm also a previous Scholar Grant recipient, so I'm a Scholar alumna at JRF. And I just get to support our team in all the ways that I can, and our scholars in all the ways that I can. And I'm so happy that you are all watching today and here. And I hope you learned something and enjoy. I wish I would have had a lot of this information when I started my undergrad degree.
Absolutely. And I want to go ahead, just give a tip. Go ahead and get your pen, notepad, or something to take some copious notes on, because I'm telling you, Michelle will be giving us some information that if you're utilizing it for yourself or maybe something you can pass on. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce you to our presenter for today. Her name is Michelle Johnson. Michelle is the CEO of Bold Thought Partners, LLC. She's a national consultant and advocate for affordable, transparent, and equitable higher education, serving clients who are scholarship providers, who are in college access programs and universities, okay? She's formerly the vice president of Central Scholarship. That was a scholarship provider in Maryland. Michelle's expertise is in financial education and advocacy. Michelle is a graduate of the University of Maryland and the University of Virginia. She's a granddaughter of immigrants, and Michelle is a first-generation college graduate. So she all knows about how to pay for college. And her children, are now college graduates, okay? So she definitely has some expertise in this area. She believes that education is the gateway to economic opportunity, and it's certainly a game changer in our personal and family trajectories. So without further ado, I will turn it over now to our presenter for this afternoon, Michelle Johnson.
Thank you so much, Latrina, and it is great to be back with the Jeanette Rankin Foundation. Today, we're going to have a conversation about paying for college. So buckle your seatbelts, because I'm going to be putting a lot in front of you today. At the very end, we will have time for Q&A. So please make a note of any questions that you have as we go. Next slide, please. Here's what we're going to cover today: the landscape, decoding cost, decision points. Latrina is going to tell us her story. Then we're going to talk about sources of money for college. Then we'll hear from Kat about her story. Then some unusual opportunities that you may not be aware of that will help you pay for college, tips, resources, and again, we'll end with Q&A. There are some handouts for today's presentation. If you do have them available, that would be great. And if not, you can use them later for reference. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with the landscape of higher education. There are more than 3,000 colleges and universities nationwide. And what you need to know is every single one has a different price. A huge majority of students, 90%, receive financial aid or scholarships. Every college has a different price, and every student at every college pays a different price. Few students pay the sticker price that you find on a college website. Sometimes you can't find a price on a college website. Today, you will learn how to make college more affordable. Next slide, please. This is some data from the Lumina Foundation about today's students. Today's students are no longer 18-year-olds going directly from high school and living in a dorm on campus. Perhaps you see yourself in these statistics about today's students. Today's students are working, sometimes in multiple jobs. Today's students are financially independent. They are first in their family to go to college. They're older. They live at or below the poverty line. They are parents and they are immigrants. Next slide, please. We're going to start by decoding the cost of college. In this chart, you see a sticker price comparison of 3 colleges, all in California. The first is a community college. The second column is a public college, and the third is a private college. The community college and public college are fairly close in total sticker price, as you can see in the total row at the bottom. Going to the private college appears to cost more for 1 year than 3 years at the other colleges, but not so simple. A closer look reveals that the major difference is tuition and fees, which are in the first row. $1,400 for a year at a community college, $7,900 for the year at a public college, and more than $53,000 at the private college. But sometimes private colleges offer huge tuition discounts. Living expenses are the second line, room and board, if you live on campus, but it's unlikely that you are going to be living on campus. The cost of attendance includes room and board, regardless of whether you live on or off campus, and it will vary based on your living situation. Next are books and supplies. This is an estimate that will vary depending on your field of study. Notice that the community college shows the highest cost. This is probably the most accurate of all 3. Some colleges and some states now prohibit textbooks that cost money, and they have shifted to what they call open source textbooks that are free and available online as a way to help students save a little bit of money when going to college. Next are transportation and personal expenses, and they are estimated by each college, and they vary widely, as you can see, and I find that they are not always accurate. Next slide, please. There are many acronyms and new words that will make you pause when figuring out how to pay for college. In your handouts, there is a complete page decoding these terms with more on the Federal Financial Aid website. But here are 3 terms that you must know. COA, cost of attendance. This is the amount it costs to attend 1 year of college in both direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are billed by your college, tuition and fees, and if you live on campus and or purchase a meal plan, these are direct costs as well. Indirect costs are not going to be on your college bill. Books, supplies, childcare, transportation, technology, and other expenses, along with living expenses for off-campus students. Whether your costs are direct or indirect, all of these items are going to be included in your cost of attendance. The next term is EFC, expected family contribution. Regardless of the name, it is not what you should expect to pay. It is an index number that determines your eligibility for federal financial aid. This number is generated by the FAFSA and reported in your student aid report. And then the final term that we're going to go over right now is the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. This is an online form that you must complete every year that you are in school. And this is your gateway to grants, loans, and scholarships, whether they are from the federal government, your state government, your college, or from a private source. Now, the FAFSA application opens on October 1st. So it is now open for the academic year that begins next August. It is very important for you to complete the FAFSA every year and as soon as it opens. If you've not yet filed your FAFSA for the fall of 2022, now's the time. Next slide, please. And now we're going to walk through a real life example to help you decode a financial aid award letter. But first, I want to give you a warning that there is no standard financial aid award letter. Award letters look different at every single college. If you have your handouts, please follow along on page 4, and I am going to screen share now. Let's begin with the box labeled need calculation, and that is the box on the top left corner. You can see the cost of attendance is just under $40,000 for the academic year. Below that is estimated family contribution, 0. Below that is initial need. And because the EFC is 0, the initial need is the same as the cost of attendance, again, just under $40,000. This student has an outside resource, most likely a private scholarship of a little more than $11,000, which lowers their need, as you can see right here, to $28,000. Next is the housing box, and you can see the student is going to live off campus. The box below is expected enrollment, and this shows that the student's plan is to attend full-time in the fall, winter, spring, and in the summer, which is not always the case. Now, moving over to the right column, you have cost of attendance. The first 5 rows are for fall, winter, and spring. Tuition and fees are nearly $13,000. Food and housing are a little more than $10,000. Books and supplies, almost $1,200. Personal expenses, slightly over $2,000, and then transportation, $375. The next 6 line items are for summer, and they total almost $10,000 for the summer. Next, you have student loan fees, and again, the total is $39,561, which you can see matches the cost of attendance up here in the need calculation. This next box, cumulative loan information, is very, very important because this lets the student know how much they have already borrowed for school. And this student has already borrowed $22,000 in subsidized loans and another $21,000 in unsubsidized loans. Okay, so below this, you actually have the financial aid offer, and the first 6 rows are grants. Okay, these are grants or scholarships that do not need to be repaid. This is known as gift aid. The gift aid totals around $23,000. Going back to the need calculation, the student still has $5,000 in additional need. So next is the federal work study right here, if you look at where my cursor is. And so federal work study is $955. A warning that while work study is included in this and many other financial aid packages, there is no guarantee that there will be a work study job for you on campus. Follow up early with your financial aid office to find out where at your college you can learn about work study openings. Finally, the last 2 lines are loans. Federal direct loans subsidized is over $4,000. The second loan, the unsubsidized loan, is $20. Why? Because that takes you to the amount of student need. So the student needed an additional $20 to make up the rest of their need. And that is how we got to $28,203, which matches $28,203 in the need calculation. So with that, I will stop screen sharing and we'll go back to the slides. Now this is not a bad financial aid offer, as while the student is not fully funded, with gift aid not requiring repayment, the student will borrow $4,200 for the academic year. So it's not a terrible offer. We can answer any questions about this during the Q&A. Next slide, please. And now we're going to hear Latrina's story.
Wow, thank you, Michelle. When I tell you this, I put in the chat and I'll say it here. I so wish I had all of this amazing knowledge and information when I was completing my degrees, because I want to actually tell you what not to do when you're looking for how to pay for college. I'm going to be really transparent and just real with you on today, because when I went back, I don't know what your age is, but I certainly went back as a non-traditional student, okay? And going back in, I had no clue. Kat put in the chat, I didn't even know what EFC meant. I mean, let alone COA, cost of attendance. And to be honest with you, didn't even understand that whole financial aid report to be able to understand what the need is. And yes, Kat, I too, and still will pronounce it incorrectly. The F word, well, no, let me go ahead and say the good F word. Let's put it that way. So, we can have an F word, but the FAFSA, not the FAFSA, because I still will pronounce it wrong. But nevertheless, let me tell you what I did. I actually went to school. I chose my college off pretty much off me wanting to show somebody up. I told you I'm going to be transparent, because that's how I decided I was going to pick a college. But doing that, guess what? I didn't look at the cost of attendance, didn't understand the support that they had or didn't have for a non-traditional student like myself with children, minor children that I needed to have accommodations for and so forth. So what I want to tell you when you're looking for how to pay for college, please, ma'am, and I'm going to say sir, because it might be a sir looking at this recording or even on with us today, please count up the costs. When I say count up the cost, that worksheet that Michelle just provided to you, or that information that she laid out, make sure you know what tuition, room, board, and fees. I didn't factor in all of the fees that were going to be attached for me going back as a non-traditional student. I was staying off campus. So of course I had to pay for parking passes and all of these other things that may not necessarily be the case. Also, I wanted to kind of point out to you, when looking for how to pay for college, I'm going to stress this. I said it when we were talking about in our other presentation with Michelle about how to pick a college. Make sure you are attending an accredited university, okay? Reason being, if you're talking about how to pay for college, I paid about $15,000 to a college that was not accredited. And guess what? That was lost funds. So what did I have to do on the end? I had to come back now and take out loans that, guess what, Latrina had to pay back. So again, I want to stress to you, don't do what Latrina did. Learn from her. Listen to me. Count up the cost. Ensure that you know when you're looking to whatever school you're looking to go to, number one, that it's accredited. Number two, that it provides the support that it's going to need to be able to really support and really mesh with you and your family's needs. And please, I beg of you to ensure that you work through this worksheet, look at it, and ensure that when you get to that final cost for the semester, that you have not exceeded that which you don't want to exceed. Know what your cap is for that semester. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking because Kat is going to share her story. So it'll go hopefully from doom to a little bit of enlightenment when Kat shares hers.
Thank you so much, Latrina. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to have some fun, and we have 4 polls coming up for the 4 decision points. With 3,000 plus US colleges, there are definitely decision points. Let's begin with a poll for decision point number 1. Should I borrow? Please choose your answer, and then we'll go over your answers before we move on. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Right now, but you can see that almost half of you say yes, you should borrow. You should borrow. Oh, well, actually, the numbers just changed. So 46% say yes, you should borrow. 38% say no. And I really respect the two. I respect all of you very much, but the two who say I don't know, I really respect that. And actually, I just realized you can't see the results, but now you can. So these are results for poll number 1. And I just want to point out, in the class of 2019, 69% of college students borrowed, 31% did not. So it is very, very important to choose your college with great care to minimize borrowing. Kat or Latrina, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I can jump in on that one for as far as borrowing goes. And I was gonna just wink it a little during, the part where I tell my story, but I grew up, my family taught me, or my parents taught me, to be terrified of debt. And I remember really I prolonged going back to college for years because I couldn't afford it. I just couldn't afford it. I worked dead end and temp jobs and I just couldn't afford it. So I just didn't. And so although I don't like to recommend necessarily to borrow if you're not aware of what you're getting yourself into and what it really entails after you're done with your degree. But I highly recommend, read the fine print, find any opportunities that you can, because borrowing can be a really useful tool in being able to get you across that finish line. And over time, you'll end up having higher earning power that you'll be able to pay back, as opposed to just keeping, like putting it off longer and longer and not borrow, or, just making that decision to not go because you'll never be able to pay for it. It's not likely that you will at any point, unless some, magical opportunity comes up where you take the time to apply for scholarships and grants and things like that. So I really appreciate that there's kind of a house divided in here right now. It's pretty close. Some people say yes and no and not sure. The people, like Michelle said, I do appreciate, respect that you don't know. If you don't know, do your homework a little bit. And for those that say no, I also respect that. And those that say yes, it's a person to person, decision that you have to make. It's unique to your situation. So always feel it out and know what's best for you.
Thank you so much, Kat. Latrina, did you want to say anything?
I too, like Kat, I appreciate both, because I'll talk about, when you're talking about how to pay for college, I went into college with the mindset initially that I wasn't borrowing money because I didn't want to create debt. However, I found out very quickly that option that I initially had in my mind changed and it shifted. And then I was forced to have to make a decision. As Kat just said, do I want to create a better life for me and my family by deciding to take, to borrow money so that I can make a better life for us? Or do I want to stay where I am in pretty much, I want to kind of say, dead end jobs I wasn't making a living wage. So as Kat said, I'll definitely go along with her. You just have to make the decision as to where you want to be. And if you've made that decision, I think to better yourself by way of education, you just then, yes, do your homework. Don't do like I did and just go into it, do your homework, but also go into it with education and being sure that you have the right information to be able to make the best decision about what to borrow and how much to borrow. So don't want to get into that too much, Michelle. So just kind of my little comment on that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much, Latrina and Kat. Next, decision point number 2. Should I apply for private scholarships? Let's put up another poll, please. Okay, so you have three options, yes, no, and not sure. Please go ahead and vote, and then we'll go over the results. Okay, I've just ended the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. 92% said yes, and one person said no. And the correct answer is, and there aren't always correct answers, but for this question, the correct answer is absolutely 100% yes, unless you were fully funded by federal, state, and institutional grants and scholarships. And what you should know is each year more than 7 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars is awarded in private scholarships. So why not you? Definitely apply. Latrina and Kat, do you want to add anything?
I definitely do. One of the best classes that I ever took during my undergrad was right at I think a second term into community college, and it was how to pay for college. And the professor just said, apply for everything. Apply for everything you can. If it's something that seems like it's really competitive, be selective of your time and what you're putting into that scholarship application, because it's like 5,000 applicants and you're kind of not sure if you really are going to be eligible or stand out. Maybe it may not be worth your time, but apply for as many opportunities as you can, because what's it going to hurt? You're just kind of throwing out the net and you're just kind of pulling it in and seeing what you caught. So I definitely encourage anybody to apply for any opportunities they can.
Thank you very much. Latrina, did you want to add anything?
Ditto with what Kat is saying. I know we're going to touch on it, but I just want to kind of point out the chat on Michelle, because a lot of people are talking about where. So we're getting there, guys. So just hold your hope. And I will say, please apply. Guess what? This is something I learned earlier on. I think I heard it. Can't even remember where I heard it. Guess what? If you don't apply, it's a definite no. Okay, there's no option. However, if you do apply, there's a 50-50 chance it's a yes or a no. So don't do yourself a disservice by not applying. And I will say, please do the homework. It is work. It is hard work. I won't take Kat's thunder, but I know Kat said she pretty much it ended up being like a job for her, because it's work. So just know it's not going to be an easy task to find it, but it's so well worth it when you can get those dollars that you don't have to pay back. So really consider it, okay?
Thank you so much, Latrina and Kat, and I could not agree more with what you both said. Next slide, please. The next decision point is, can I appeal? Oh, I'm sorry. Next slide, please. Can I appeal my financial aid offer? Let's go ahead and put up the poll, please. Your options are yes, no, and not sure. Very good. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results with you. 71% of you said yes, and the rest of you said you're not sure. And that is excellent. The answer is yes. There's a link in your handouts that contains a step-by-step guide about how to appeal your financial aid award letter, and always start with your financial aid office. The final decision point, number 4, is, should I start at community college to save money? Again, let's put up our final poll, please. And your options are yes, no, and not sure. Very good. So I've closed the poll, and here are the results. Almost 80% of you say yes. 1 of you says no, and 2 are not sure. Again, the answer is maybe. This decision is really a personal decision driven by your personal factors and the factors that are taken into account with your academic plan. Latrina or Kat, do you have anything you'd like to weigh in? And I apologize, I think I forgot to ask you after decision point number 3. So if you have anything you want to say for either 3 or 4, now's the time.
Yeah, I can, oh, go ahead, Latrina, you first.
Yeah, I would, for number 4, I would definitely recommend starting at community college. I really would. I mean, I recommend it for several reasons, but 2 of the main ones, when I started back, I really needed to have more of a smaller class size. So, you know, jumping back into it, that was important to me. But also, if you look into it and count up the cost is definitely significantly lower than what it would be if you're transferring over into a 4-year university. But I will say proceed with caution, because you want to, you know, ensure if you're starting at a community college that those courses that you're taking is going to transfer over. Because we're talking about how to pay for college, right? So we don't want you to just take courses over at the community college that won't transfer. So do your homework. Yeah, I know we're telling you to do your homework a lot, but it's very important that you do that up front so you don't be on the back end like myself with some debt that you probably could have not ended up with had I really did my homework on the front end, okay?
Amen to that. I was gonna just let people know too, Michelle had hosted a workshop that we have up on our website about how to pick a college. And it's really useful to look at some of the advantages on both sides of community college and starting at a 4-year institution. I started at a community college because it was local and it was easier for me to access the classes and times, and a lot of community colleges are more accommodating to non-traditional students. And so that was something that appealed to me, and it helped me save a lot of money. I would just throw out a word of caution, and just to make sure that you're getting really top-notch advising, because like Latrina had said before, sometimes you'll start at a program and spend a lot of time and money on taking classes that don't transfer over. And so we're talking about financial aid and how much money you're going to get and spend on college. If you're taking college courses at a community college or a 4-year institution and you go to a different institution, make sure that your courses, those credits transfer over, because if they don't, that's a huge loss of money that could really kind of bite you in the end.
Thank you very much, Latrina and Kat. Next slide, please. Now we're shifting to sources of money for college. Remember that the FAFSA is your gateway to all financial aid from every source. First, the federal government. It offers grants, loans, and work study. The Pell Grant is need-based with an annual maximum of $6,500. It goes furthest at a community college or a public college in your state. Often, in those situations, it will fund all or most tuition and fees. It can also be used at private colleges. The Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant is also need-based with an annual maximum of $4,000. There are federal teach grants of up to $4,000 per year for students in teacher education programs. If you are offered federal work study, again, make sure you quickly follow up with your college, because a job on campus is not guaranteed, even if it's in your financial aid package. There are various types of federal student loans. Some accrue interest as soon as you sign, others accrue no interest until you graduate or leave school. All carry an interest rate, which varies, so beware you will repay more than you borrow. Next, there are state grant programs. Every state is different, but here is an example in my state, Maryland. We have exceptional need-based grants that cover students at both public and private colleges, as well as community colleges. We have a 2+2 scholarship for community college students who are transferring to a 4-year institution. We have a part-time student grant graduate and professional grants, a community college promise program that funds tuition and fees at community colleges, and a near completer grant for returning students who are close to completing their degree. We also have something, a legislative scholarship program, and every state senator and delegate awards scholarship money to constituents in their districts. We have career-based grants, loan assistance repayment programs, and a home buyer assistance program for those with student debt who want to buy homes. So again, this is the lay of the land in Maryland, but there are opportunities in other states. So please check the Higher Education Commission in your state and see what they have to offer. Next is institutional aid. Colleges award institutional scholarships of varying amounts, some that are enormous, and paired sometimes with federal, state, and private aid that may fully fund your cost. But this is the exception and not the rule. Some colleges require a separate application for their scholarships. Others do not. Ask your financial aid office what kinds of scholarships are available at your college. The fourth source of money is private scholarships, such as what the Jeanette Rankin Foundation has to offer. FastWeb, FASTWEB, is a great website to search for scholarships, and we'll give the link later on. There are many organizations that offer scholarships nationally and locally, and it is worth it for you to take the time to search and apply. Finally, if you are a community college transfer student, I encourage you to look at the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, which offers very, very generous scholarships for students who have completed an associate's degree and are going to transfer to a four-year institution. Finally, student loans. We've already talked about federal student loans. There are also private student loans. Once you are a student, you will receive boatloads of mail from Discover Card and other sources of private loans. Please beware that private loans do not offer the same protections and opportunities as federal student loans. One type of private loan that I encourage you to look for are interest-free loans, which are available in some communities around the country. An example, if anyone is in St. Louis, is the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis, which offers generous interest-free student loans to students who meet their eligibility criteria. Interest-free loans are a great way to fill in your gap after federal, state, and institutional aid, and you repay just what you borrowed. There is no interest. That's why it's called interest-free. I encourage you to look for such loans in your community. Next slide, please. And now we're going to hear Kat's story.
Hey guys, this is such good information. I had already said earlier that before I started college, I really didn't know anything about financing it. I grew up in a very low income household. I'm the youngest of 9 children, and I am a first gen college student. So my parents never went to college. And I grew up in poverty. And so when I went back to school, my driving motivation was to earn more money and actually, pursue an education so that my children didn't have to grow up in that type of, environment and life. And so I'm a single mom of 3 young children. And so paying for college has been really, really challenging. And when I first started and went back to school, I actually got funding through the Head Start program, which is a federally funded program for low-income families paying for their kids to go to preschool. And my case manager, she was like my family advocate, and she advocated on my behalf to get my GED classes paid for. And that was my first real experience with getting any kind of scholarship to go to school. And I thought, wow, people believe in me and they want to help support me get my GED. That's amazing. That's so cool. So I got my GED, but when I started, actually going to community college, I just thought, you know what? I'm going to take out what I need to take out because I just don't want to stop this momentum. And when I took my course on how to pay for college, and this professor was amazing at really helping me understand how to craft my story, I think that was one of the biggest game changers in how to pay for college for me. It wasn't necessarily understanding finances, because I've never considered myself phenomenal at math. I can do it, I just don't like it. It gives me anxiety. So I didn't expect to be like some, whiz at understanding interest or how, repayment of loans worked. I just want to get through it. But learning how to apply for opportunities really was what helped me. And so I would just encourage everybody that's really considering going back to school and paying for college, maybe just shift your perspective on how you're paying for college and what you're focusing your time on. For me personally, Latrina kind of mentioned it, I made it my job. I literally stopped working a full-time job because I just couldn't do both, taking care of my 3 kids alone and also going to school full-time and working full-time. What I did is I made applying for scholarships and grants my new job. And I wrote and I rewrote and I rewrote all my story and I retold my story. I talked to my professors. I went to my writing center to learn how to really refine my story and tell my story in a way that made sense to funders. And then what happened is I started picking up part-time jobs, work study, and things that made more sense, that were more on that academic level, than spending all my time working full time and trying to just struggle and pay for college. And what happened was I focused more on my academics, which brought my GPA up. And because my GPA was higher, I was eligible for merit-based scholarships. And then there's also scholarships that are kind of major specific. So I'm a psych major, and I minored in public policy and nonprofit admin. And so I really went for like niche kind of grants and scholarships that were specific to those areas of study. And then I just applied for any other grants and opportunities. I'm a JRF, Jeanette Rankin Scholar alumna. And so any way that I could craft my story to get that funding so that way I could keep my GPA up was really important to me, because I want to go to grad school, and it's competitive to get into grad school. And they really look at a lot of those activities that you're involved in and the things that you're doing during your undergrad. So really part of my story and being able to fund my education focused on a bigger picture of being able to get not only my school paid for, but I needed to make sure that my GPA was high enough and that I was eligible for a lot of those opportunities post undergrad. So I'm so glad that you guys are all here today, and really, like, no question is a bad question ever. So I asked a lot of questions about opportunities and really took advantage of having resources available to me during my undergrad to be able to get that funding and to get across that finish line. And I just graduated this last spring with honors, and I'm definitely going to be applying for grad school. And I'm at that caliber now where I'm competitive for those programs. And so I encourage all of you, just keep going and asking for opportunities.
Thank you much. Thank you so much, Kat. Next slide, please. Next, we're moving towards funding opportunities that you may not know about that exist in your community. There are 6 opportunities that we're going to go over. The first is free college. There are now 348 college promise programs in 47 states. If you live in Idaho, Alaska, or Mississippi, unfortunately, for now, you are out of luck, but who knows, maybe someday there'll be a program in your state. These programs all look different. Some fund community college only, some fund public college, some allow students to go anywhere. One word of caution, free is not really free. Tuition and fees are usually covered, but not cost of attendance. I encourage you to find out whether there is a free college program in your community, and if there is, please take a really good look at it. Next are regional tuition exchanges. A tuition exchange program allows you to go out of state and pay in-state prices for majors that are unique and not offered in your state. My state, Maryland, is in the academic common market with 14 other southern states. There are other exchanges in the Midwest, in New England, and in the Western states. And there are only 6 states that are not in one of these exchange programs. And Kat, you need to know, and any of our other graduate students that are out there, sometimes graduate degrees are included in these tuition exchanges. Next, there are 2+2 transfer scholarships, and these are for students who complete their associate degrees and are continuing on for a bachelor's degree. Next slide, please. Next is cooperative education, where students alternate semesters of work and study, getting paid and gaining valuable work experience and connections that may lead to a job after graduation. I'm really, really enthusiastic about cooperative education, though it is not offered by all colleges, nor is it offered in all majors. But if you're interested in this, make sure you choose a college that has a program. The schools with the best known cooperative education programs are Northeastern University in Boston and Drexel University in Philadelphia. There are many, many others. So just look around, especially if you're majoring in engineering or business. Next, most colleges offer tuition benefits for employees and sometimes even for employees' children. And finally, some employers offer education benefits, so check with your HR department. And finally, the military offers education benefits for active duty and veterans. Next slide, please. Now we're going to go over a series of tips. Tip number 1, complete your FAFSA as soon as possible after it opens on October 1st, and do this every year while you're in school. Tip number 2, pay attention to deadlines. They really matter, whether you're applying for federal aid, state aid, or scholarships from your college or a private source. Respect those deadlines. Tip number 3, map out your plan and finish as soon as you are able. Having a plan and finishing as soon as possible will definitely save you money in the long run. Tip number 4, don't use all your financial aid at community college. Beware of non-credit remedial classes that don't get you to the finish line, but still use your financial aid. There is a limit. You can only receive the Pell Grant for up to 12 semesters. So keep that in mind. Tip number 5, stay in state, get state aid, and pay in-state tuition. An example, Temple University in Philadelphia. In-state tuition is $16,000, while out-of-state tuition is more than $30,000. In Maryland, the state grants and legislative scholarships are limited to students who are Maryland students who are staying in-state, attending public or private colleges. So please stay in state and get state aid. Tip number 6, take advantage of tax benefits for education, which are offered at the federal and sometimes at the state level. Next slide, please. Tip number 7, apply for private scholarships, though never pay an application fee. Follow up on all document requests, write a thank you note, reapply each year if you have a renewable scholarship, explore whether your employer offers scholarships to employees, and search for local and national scholarships. Each private scholarship has its own unique application process and its own unique deadline, so search and apply early. And finally, beware of scholarship award displacement. This is after you receive a private scholarship when your institutional aid is reduced. So be on the lookout for that. Next slide, please. Tip number 8, know before you owe. We read a financial aid award letter. Make sure you read and understand your financial aid award letter. Ask for help in the financial aid office. And if you can make a friend there, all the better. Read and understand your bill every semester. And if you have any questions, go to your friend in the financial aid office. If you borrow, don't borrow any more than you need. Find out if there are interest-free loans in your community. Co-signers and borrowers are equally on the hook for repayment. And finally, choose federal loans over private loans because federal loans offer more protections and more opportunities. Slide 18. And this is our final tip. Tip number 9, use the net price calculator. And we are going to go through a real life example for a student interested in Cal State Chico. So bear with me for a moment while I share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. This is the main page of the net price calculator for Cal State University, Chico. We agree to the terms. Do you plan to apply for financial aid? Yes. How old are you? And I'm just going to put 35, even though I'm not. Where do you plan to live while attending this institution? Living on my own. Are you eligible for in-state tuition? Yes. Continue. Are you, the student, the primary source of financial support for any children? Yes. How many people are in your household? And we're going to say 4 people. Of the number in your family above, how many will be in college next year? And we will say just 1. Finally, what is your annual household income after taxes? And we're going to say less than $30,000 and continue. Okay, so this page is a summary of all of the information that we just entered, and I confirmed that it is all accurate, and we will continue. And so here are the results of our net price calculator for this institution. The estimated cost of before I do this, I want to point out one thing, and I hope you can see my cursor. This is for the academic year 2019-2020, and there is a federal law that requires all colleges and universities in the country to have a net price calculator on their website. And some have, information based on the current year, and very often you will find slightly or more outdated information. So just keep in mind, this is from two years ago. The estimated cost of attendance is just under $26,000. Here is a breakdown of the costs that go into the cost of attendance. And the estimated total grant aid. This is from federal, state, and local sources, as well as from the institution. And again, this is grant aid that does not need to be repaid, covers slightly more than half of the cost of attendance, covers $13,000. The estimated net price after grants and scholarships is $12,000. So this is why it is very important to apply for private scholarships. Okay, where are we? Next slide, please. Okay, at this point, we're going to go over 2 resources. And first, the College Board, which offers some great tools and information to help you pay for college. Next slide, please. And this is FastWeb, which offers a great and legitimate tool for searching for scholarships. And finally, a plug for studentaid.gov. This is the federal student aid website. Again, it's studentaid.gov, which is also an excellent resource. So with that, Latrina, Kat, and I are ready to answer your questions. And so let's go ahead and take a look in the chat. And if anyone has any live questions, feel free to ask them as well.
I was just going to go back really quick about the adjusting an award letter or a FAFSA award. So we kind of winked at it a little bit, but I wanted to just go back to it and share just a personal story in that I had a free ride, a full ride scholarship from University of Oregon, and I had all my tuition paid, and then I also had grants in addition to that to be able to pay for housing costs and books and things like that. And it still didn't cut it. It still wasn't paying. I mean, I looked at my award letter and I was thinking, gosh, how's it I'm getting all of this aid, but I can't take out any more loans because it offsets. So it kind of washes everything out. And so I still had it was like almost $5,000 that I needed to be able to pay for my housing for the year. And I talked to my financial aid advisor and I said, look, I'm getting this awesome grant coming in for this research grant, but it's not making any difference. It's basically just canceling out what I'm eligible to take out for loans, which was great, and that I took out less for loans, but I needed to pay for my housing still. And it was really, really hard to do that. And she took a look at my total housing cost, which was lower than it should have been, being that I was living off campus and I'm a single mom and I have 3 kids. And so they were going off of the standard kind of single person cost of living and off campus. And I needed additional funds for that. And so what they did is they adjusted my financial aid to include my housing costs as being a little bit higher than what it was. I think it was reflecting around like 10,000 total, which is not accurate at all for where I'm at. It was around 17,000. And so she adjusted that. And what it did is it made it to where I was eligible to take out loans. Even though I didn't want to, I still didn't want to lose my house. I wanted to continue being able to go through my courses. So I encourage you, if something isn't making sense, go and talk to your financial aid advisor. It may not be that specific situation, but if you're not understanding how things are kind of washing out in your own financial aid award, have them, kind of like what Michelle did, have them walk through line by line and help you understand what it is that you're looking at. So that way you have your tuition covered, you have your housing costs covered, and everything that you need to make sure that you stay on track.
And I just want to add one thing. Thank you, Kat, that you can always ask your college financial aid office to look at your cost of attendance and actually adjust it upwards. And it's so often they need to be adjusted upwards. And childcare is actually an expense that can go into cost of attendance, but you may have to make it known that you need it included in your cost of attendance. Latrina, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to actually talk just a little bit more about Kat, talking about, the cost not being correct on her report. This is where I would say, guys, pay very close attention to every document that you receive as it relates to your financial aid. It happens, and I'm not saying it's not done intentionally, but you want to make sure the numbers just line up. Say, for instance, if you know what the amount is being rewarded to you for the fall and the spring, just make sure that that amount is consistent and that it doesn't fluctuate. Now, I will say it can, so don't assume that it's going to stay the same, but depending on what it is. So definitely make sure that you comb through it. Take the time. I'm telling you, it's hard to just kind of scan over it, gloss over it, put it to the side and move on, but make sure, and you're better off being able to come back and have to appeal something or get it corrected earlier on than later on. And I say this because if, say for instance, if you've gotten more money and you end up using the money, if you've used it, then how do you come back and give that money back? So you want to definitely always kind of be ahead of that to make sure that you're doing that. Michelle, I wanted to make sure somebody put in the chat, they were asking, about the school set aside funds for the non-traditional student. And so I answered in there basically saying you just really need to reach out to the school because every school is different. I don't know. Do you know if there is like funds that are just set aside for the non-traditional student?
At the Jeanette Rankin Foundation, there are.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, I was gonna plug that, but I'm just saying she asked specifically about schools, and I wanted to say, we're definitely an outlier here and unique in that perspective. But do you know if schools, if there are any, I don't want to say requirements, but if there's any mandates in place that would suggest that they do so?
There are no mandates that I know of, but from an advocacy perspective, I think that's a really important issue going forward. I will say that colleges have gotten the memo, and I believe they now know that their students are now majority non-traditional students. And so I think colleges, they're coming around. Kat, you look like you know something. Why don't you jump in here?
Yeah, I would just say there are a lot. So the the way that the Department of Education classifies a non-traditional student, one of the terms that they consider, or criteria that they consider, is a transfer student. So if you're a transfer student from a community college, you are considered a non-traditional student, even if you are still younger and don't necessarily fall into that age bracket. So a lot of grants are available for transfer students going to a 4-year. So I encourage you, if you are at a community college or plan to go to a community college and transfer to a 4-year institution, look to see if they have a transfer student grant or scholarship, because a lot of the time you will be rewarded for making that jump as a transfer student. So that's one option. And then also, if you're a student parent, a lot of programs on campuses offer child grants. And so if you need childcare, I know a lot of funding is put towards child care on a federal level through various programs. And I had mentioned in the chat about the TRIO program. TRIO is a federally funded program that exists on a lot of college campuses. There's a humongous bucket of money that is allotted for that program. And so TRIO there are 3 different programs under that umbrella, and 2 of them really would offer a lot of funding opportunities for non-traditional students. One is the McNair Scholars Program, and that kind of grooms students for PhD programs, and they offer research grants. And so that's kind of a pool of money that you could kind of count on if you're a non-traditional student looking to go into grad school. And the big one that I would highly, highly recommend is Student Support Services, and they offer tuition-based grants. They also offer free tutoring services and book lending and things like that. So if you're a non-traditional student, I would encourage you to go to your dean of students on your campus and or ask an advisor, or look for any clubs that might offer any support in that way, that may have those types of grants and scholarships focused around specific circumstances as a non-traditional student, being a parent or being a veteran, or those types of things.
And finally, COVID has really shifted everything. And COVID has forced colleges and universities to look at things in completely different ways. And there are now, many schools are now opening student basic need centers to help students with issues of housing and food and other challenges, whether new or old challenges. So anyway, there are places on college campuses that are looking at the needs of non-traditional students. Unfortunately, they're not always easy to find. I see we have questions about paying for graduate school, and that is a whole nother ballgame. And I know I don't know a lot about it at this point. What I do know is in my state, Maryland, we actually do have some funding programs for graduate students. So I really encourage you, if you're looking for money for graduate school, to go to the website of your state higher education commission and see what resources they have. And also, being a teaching assistant or getting a job at a college or a university, to me, seems like the best possible way to pay for a master's degree at this point. And I was very lucky. I got my master's degree when it was really affordable. And that is no longer the case. And these are hard times to be paying for college and for graduate school. Have I missed any questions? Are there, Kat or
Yeah,
Latrice?
there's one in the chat. There's one that just asked, how long after a decision is made can an award letter offer be appealed?
I would say as soon as possible. I would love to know, Audrey, how long ago was this decision received?
I would say August. August, yeah.
You know what, Audrey, go for it. Go for it. Contact your financial aid office and ask them. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So go ahead and try. And if you can't appeal it for this semester, if perchance they tell you, Audrey, it is just too late, then next semester, take a look, and if you want to appeal, appeal it at that time. But I would go for it right now and use the document where there is a link in the materials for tonight's session. And if you could let us know, that would be great, Audrey. If you could report back to the Jeanette Rankin staff and let us know, I would love to know what happens with that.
Thank you so much. I sure will.
Okay, all righty. Do we have anything else?
I didn't see it in the chat, but I just wanted to throw out there some of the most unlikely places to apply for funding. You may be surprised. I got a scholarship through my credit union that I bank at. They offer scholarships. And so any opportunities that you may think absurd, maybe you volunteer for a program in your community or for an organization in your community, reach out and ask about funding anywhere that you can. I had mentioned that the Head Start program paid for my GED classes. The Head Start program also offers actual scholarships for college for parents with kids in Head Start. So there are all kinds of funding opportunities out there that may not be offered through your college or your institution that they may not know about, but ask anybody that you are involved with who is, interested in you going back to school, and ask them if they know about anything. I always ask questions and find opportunities. And we also, I just want to say, on our website, under our resources tab, have a lot of amazing resources that we've found that we like to share out, and we update that page periodically. So anyone who's watching this right now or participating in this workshop, please go to that, to our website, rankinfoundation.org, and look through a lot of those resources, and hopefully some of those help as well.
Yeah, great point there, Kat. And I wanted to say, you see on there, hey, there's a QR code on there for Rankin Foundation. Just come on, we're fancy now. Just put your phone up there and snap a picture. I love it. Michelle mentioned it earlier, and I'm telling you, I would do us a disservice if I didn't talk about the opportunity that is here for you at the Jeanette Rankin Foundation. I will say, if you're in graduate, you wouldn't qualify if you're working on your graduate degree or PhD or whatever. But if you're working on your first bachelor's degree or lower, because you can be working on, a certification or something, okay, as long as it's accredited. Tammy, don't cry. Don't cry, Tammy. But for us, it is for that first bachelor's degree. And again, we really are an outlier. There are not many organizations that provide scholarships to the non-traditional, well, for us, woman or student in general. So just know, and even if you don't qualify, don't be selfish. Share it over with somebody else who may be able to benefit from it. Our application cycle is currently open. That's right, you heard me. It's like open right now, and it's open from now until February the 17th. But don't let that February 17th date, just kind of make you chill. You want to jump in there and get it done, because there are documents and things you have to do in order to be able to submit and apply for our scholar grant for this year. Just know that we're super excited that you're here with us on today. I don't see that are there any other questions, Kat, that came in? It was scrolling pretty fast, so I couldn't follow it too much.
No, I don't see anything, but I do see a lot of people running out of financial aid. And this is a really common thing for non-traditional students who are returning to school after taking a break and maybe utilizing or using up a lot of those funds from previously. So I highly encourage you to look for any kind of opportunities like our scholar grant. There's also another one out there that I'll just throw out there. It's the PEO organization. It's the Philanthropist Education Organization, and they have local chapters within areas of the United States that offer sometimes interest-free loans. And they also offer scholar grants as well, like ours, to pay for tuition. So if you're in that last stretch and you've run out of funding, financial aid, I highly encourage you to go and look for those types of grants that can help pay for tuition, where you're just able to get past that finish line. all of those things are available on our website, on our resources page. So I really highly encourage you to go and look through a lot of those resources that might help you pay for that last stretch of college.
Kat, put the PEO in the chat. Michelle also mentioned Jack Kent Cook earlier on, and we didn't put a link in there. Michelle, do you have a link for Jack Kent Cook handy? So
Nope,
if you have,
I will get one right
okay.
away.
Not only that, I just thought about one, guys. Thurgood Marshall. I think it's traditionally for HBCUs, but if you're on, and I'm almost certain they do award scholarships, scholar grants, I can't remember what they call it, to graduate students. So definitely, if you're, depending on what it is, look up Thurgood Marshall as well, because I do know they offer scholarships to those that are working toward graduate degrees. But again, I think it's more so focused to those that are at HBCUs.
Now, how about UNCF? Latrina or Kat, do you know?
I don't know about UNCF, but again, here, this is where when we say, do your work, apply, and if it's coming to you, Michelle, then maybe they do. So I don't think it will hurt. Hey, if you haven't heard of these scholarships, do yourself a service and go. Another one, and I know this one is on our website. I think it's the Seroptimist Woman, or maybe it's just the Seroptimist. I do know we've had several of our scholars who were scholars with us and went over and they applied and received that scholarship as well. And I mean, come on, guys, if you're on here and if you know of any that you've applied for, come on, drop them in the chat. This is where we can be a little more powerful together with sharing the information and knowledge that we have and helping, one another out. So that's kind of how we do it. Thanks, Michelle. Hey, guys, Michelle is on a roll. I see about 7 links. I love it. About 7 links in there. So
Go.
that means you got homework. So if you haven't applied for these, and by all means, do your due diligence. Again, here, I've said this and I'll continue to say it. Ensure that you're eligible, because you don't want to just be in there applying. I mean, it hurts my heart every year that we have individuals that come over, apply for our scholar grant, but unfortunately they're not eligible. Okay, so make sure you check out their eligibility and so forth. Thank you, Audrey. NSLS Foundation, she just posted that, has scholarships. Thank you so much. Again, here we can help each other, and if we find any other resources on, for us, for the Jeanette Rankin Foundation, it's in the chat. rankinfoundation.org is under that resources tab, and we update it as we get that information. Yeah, local Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club. Listen, Kat talked about credit unions, your banks. I just thought about a lot of employees, a lot of your employers are now providing, some type of support for education. So, I mean, come on, guys, if you're already working for them anyways, and if you look to stay in that field, why not go and allow them? I'm going to say, I don't know if anybody on Amazon works for Amazon on the call. I do know my son does. I just found out that Amazon is now providing scholarships for their employees.
I think Starbucks does too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of people that do. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Michelle is on a roll. American Legion, Taco Bell, Walmart. Yes, I love it. And I'm not saying go get a job at any of these places just to get, a scholarship. However, if you got to make money and if it can pay the bills, why not make it be a win-win for you? This is where we have to kind of sometimes think outside the box. Okay. So don't be afraid to switch over and maybe go into another area so that you don't come out with a whole lot of funds. Yes, Camille, you want to put in the chat? You got a question or comment?
And
yes,
I just wanted to say,
hi.
oh, good. Hey, Camille. Hi.
Hi, my voice is better today. I'm getting over my, I just got hired as a chemistry tutor at my community college, but now I'm moving on to the university. Is that considered a work study, and does it transfer, or I don't know how that works, because it's not, I'm going to another university, but I'm still going to be a tutor at the state college.
So it's not considered work study unless it's called work study. And So if it's work study, you'll know it. And if it's like I worked in residence life and then in admissions at my college, University of Maryland. They were not work study jobs. But if you're at a work study job, you know you are, because it was in your financial aid award letter. And then when you got the job, you got it as a work study job.
Yeah, I would ask Camille, if I were you, ask the department that you're working under, what you were hired as. I worked also, like Michelle saying, I worked both for the university as an actual employee hired on by the university, and then I also worked as a work study hired on by the university as a work study. And the best way you'll know if it's work study is you'll run out of hours. They only have a certain amount of hours that you're eligible to work that you get to take advantage of. That you get, like I think in that award letter that Michelle showed us, that student was eligible for like $300 per semester, per quarter that they were eligible for, and then it was like a total of $900 for the whole year. So depending on what your work study that you were awarded, ask your employer. And that I just want to mention really quickly in the chat, one of our participants was asking about they're in a graduate program and they're running out of funding. The PEO organization offers interest-free loans to grad students. That was one of the only programs that I know of that offers funding for grad students that has no interest to pay it back. So even though they're loans, it's still an opportunity to help you get through that program. So, and also, Camille, congratulations for transferring over to a university. That's so cool. Yay.
Absolutely. She took the jump. Guys, it can be scary. However, if that's what you need to do to complete your education, don't be afraid. I'm telling you, once you do it, the jitters eventually go away and it gets easier each semester you go, but go in with that mindset that you're focused and staying, on track to do what it is that you set out to do. And that's get your degree, right? So yeah, definitely stay focused on it. Go, Camille. Yes, Kat.
Question really quick that I don't think we covered too much of, but I do hear this a lot, and that's academic probation. And maybe just who would somebody talk to if they were on academic probation and they want to go back to school? Who would they need to contact at community college or university or institution to get back on track?
I would start with an academic advisor. I think that is the place to start, and they may tell you need to talk to financial aid, but I would always start with academic advising.
Agree with that on Michelle, because at least with academic advising, this is where they can really sit down, look at your transcript, see what you have going on. And then of course, if there's a GPA requirement, that way you can get back on track. They can kind of probably break it down more so to you than financial aid, because financial aid is more about the money. Whereas that academic advisor can hopefully give you a strategy or a plan to help you get back on track. So I don't know of any sites that could, maybe assist with that. Do you know of any sites, Michelle, as far as academic, just maybe kind of helping them figure that out? Because I know we do it with our scholars. We'll kind of sit down and help them as best we can to help them come up with a strategy. But that's kind of about the bulk of what we do to kind of encourage them and support them to help them get back going.
And Latrina, I mean, that is an exceptional service that is offered by Jeanette Rankin. I think it's really hit or miss, and you really need to luck into finding what I would call your fairy godmother. And sometimes in life we accidentally meet our fairy godmother, and so you need to find your fairy godmother on your campus, and just hang on to that person as long as you can.
Awesome. Yes, Kat.
Another thing I just wanted to mention is that if you do end up going into academic probation with your financial aid, I know there are ways to appeal that as well. And I have just a quick personal testament, not me, but one of my siblings had gone into academic probation when the pandemic hit, he was going back to community college and he was taking a computer literacy course, the term where the entire campus shut down. And he really needed those skills to learn how to navigate a computer and programming and things to be able to do online school. And he ended up dropping out. And because he was already like teetering on that academic probation, because he had utilized a lot of his funds, he couldn't drop below a certain GPA, and he did because he failed that class. It just so happened that he needed that class to succeed because everything went online. So I encouraged him to appeal it so that way he didn't lose his opportunities later when he did go back to school when the campuses opened up, and they approved it. So he didn't, you know, if he wouldn't have appealed that, he would have had all of his financial aid opportunities taken from him and not been able to go back when he was ready. And now when he is ready to go back, he can, and he has that opportunity. So I encourage you, anytime you get any determination where maybe you, you know, you get into some hot water with academic probation like that, make sure that you really kind of talk to somebody about whether or not it can be appealed, and fill out that appeal. The worst thing they can say is no.
But the best thing they can say is yes, right?
We're gonna
So,
shoot.
wow.
Exactly.
Always shoot for the yes.
Yes, always, always, always on the positive side. Michelle, do you have any other, I guess, closing points or remarks before we head out of here? Because we've addressed all of the questions, and hey, you know, it's been a great session today.
So other than saying you have been a phenomenal audience, and I hope you have all learned a lot. Just go back and look at your resources in your handouts. And if you need to, watch this presentation again on the Jeanette Rankin website. And I wish everyone the best, and make sure that you become a wise consumer of higher education, and take advantage of everything that is available to you to pay for college.
Wonderful, Michelle. Thank you guys again so much for spending your time, your afternoon with us to learn about how to pay for college. Michelle has already said it. Hopefully something that was said that kind of pricked you and you know, educated you, that you'll apply it to your life, and then maybe share it over with somebody else so they can apply for theirs. Don't forget, we have the scholarship grant opportunity through our organization. The information that you received today, it is recorded. We will send it over to you for those that registered. And if you want to always come back to our site, we'll definitely have all of the attachments, like the documents that Michelle pulled up. You'll be able to find all of that. So no worries if you couldn't look at it on your phone or anything, know that you will be able to access all of the information. So again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and you have been a great audience today and attendees, and we're so very grateful to you. And just know we're here to do what we do, and that's support women through college completion. Okay, so you guys have an amazing, wonderful afternoon, and I want to go ahead and say happy holidays to you guys, because this is unfortunately our last webinar, but it has been real has been amazing time to share with you all this amazing information. Bye for now, guys.